Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of What's New in Prisma. Today I'm not here with my colleague Ryan Schenke, but with my other colleague Mahmoud. How are you doing today, Mahmoud?
I'm doing great. How about you? This is my first time hosting What's New in Prisma. Super exciting.
Yeah, you were a guest last week, and this week you're the host. So that's quite a big step upwards, just within 2 weeks. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I'm doing great. We have a wonderful and sunny day here in Berlin, and things are looking good. So I'm super happy and excited about today's stream, actually. Although, to be fair, it'll be a fairly short one today, I think. So we have a couple of things that we want to talk about. First, of course, this week's release. On Tuesday, we released Prisma version 2.24. And the main feature in there was some extended support for MongoDB features. So now we support JSON types and enum types for MongoDB. And Mahmoud, I think you prepared a demo for that you'll show later. And we'll also introduce a new Prismate. That's how we call our colleagues here at Prisma. He started, I think, 2 months ago or so. He's working on the documentation team. And we'll talk to Rich a little bit later on the show. And then we'll talk about some past and upcoming events that we are hosting here at Prisma. And in the end, we'll certainly have some time for Q&A. So feel free to drop your questions in the chat throughout the stream. And in the end, Mahmoud and I are going to pick them up. And you can really ask about whatever you like. You can ask whatever you ever wanted to know about Prisma. Maybe you want to know something about Mahmoud or myself. Just ask away. We'll be here and we'll pick up your question towards the end of the stream. But I think let's jump in and talk about this week's release. Mahmoud, do you maybe want to share your screen and walk us through release notes as well? Or should I do that and you prepare the demo in the meantime? What do you prefer?
Yeah, I would say you go through the different release notes, all of it, while I just make sure that everything is set up correctly.
All right, perfect. Then I'm going to go ahead and share my screen real quick and open the release notes. So here we are. This is the main Prisma repo that a lot of you are going to be familiar with, I assume. If you're using Prisma regularly, you certainly have interacted with folks from Prisma probably in the GitHub issues or through GitHub discussions. And if you click on releases right here, you can see all the past Prisma releases. And this week's release from 2 days ago is 2.24. And as I mentioned, the biggest feature that we've released this week was support for JSON and enum types for MongoDB. So just as a reminder, Prisma today works mostly with relational databases. So we're supporting Postgres, MySQL, SQLite, and SQL Server. But we're expanding the range of databases that we support. And in fact, MongoDB is the first non-relational database that's being supported by Prisma. And in order to use it, we ask you to fill out this 2-minute type form, and then we'll send you all the resources that you need in order to get started. But in general, it's not very different from how you would use other preview features or early access features that are available in Prisma, and that's by specifying the feature name here in the preview features field on the Prisma client generator. And here's a little sample that already gives you an idea for what it looks like to work with JSON and enum types in MongoDB. So here we have this model called log and an
Niko,
enum called...
Quick question, I have to interrupt. I don't think your screen is being shared.
Thank you for interrupting. Add to stream. Yeah, I forgot to...
Yeah. So again, quick recap. This is the release notes, and you can see kind of like the latest, all of the releases. If there are any breaking changes, that's where you'll find them. This is like the single source of truth. But yeah.
Yes.
So this is we did.
Thank you for interrupting me.
Yeah.
So I think this happened like last week with Ryan on the stream as well, and he caught me a little bit earlier. I have to get news that you have to hit this extra button in StreamYard to actually go and share your stream. But thanks anyways, and here we are in the release notes in the main Prisma repo. And this is the log model. There is an enum defined that's called level with 3 different levels. And then the log model is using that enum. It's even assigning a default value for it. And then it's also using the JSON type. And here's a little code snippet that shows how to use it. But I think with the demo that Mahmoud is going to give, we'll get a more practical understanding of what this actually looks like and how it can be used. And what I showed before that you all couldn't see was that if you want to use MongoDB in early access, we ask you to fill out this 2-minute type form right here that's being linked from the release notes and a couple of other places. Once you fill that out, we'll invite you to our private Slack channel with all MongoDB preview users and share the right resources with you that help you to get started. Another thing that you might or might not be aware of are new features for the Prisma Data Platform. So the Prisma Data Platform is the commercial product that we are building in addition to our open source tools. And of course, the idea behind that data platform is for developers and development teams and bigger development organizations to collaborate better in projects that are using the Prisma open source tools. One of the main features that the Prisma Data Platform has today is this online data browser that we launched a couple of weeks ago. And in fact, there is Mahmoud in the blog post explaining the mechanics of the data browser. So go ahead and check out that blog post if you're curious what that is and if you haven't heard about it before. There are some new features in the Prisma Data Platform, and while it's not actually part of this repository, we still think that it might be interesting for you to learn about these, so we include them in the release notes when there are notable new features. And there are 2 new features, or 3 new features in particular. One is that you can actually now see the Prisma schema inside of your project that you can manage through the web app of the Prisma Data Platform, and also a settings page. So the entire Prisma Data Platform and the online data browser, they're also still in early access. So this is still very basic kind of functionality that is being built, but it's usable and you can already start exploring it. Finally, static IPs are now supported. So if your database is behind some kind of a proxy, you can actually still use it by adding a static IP to a whitelist in order to use it. And if you have any questions or feedback for the Prisma Data Platform, then you can go ahead and create an issue. The issues we currently collect in the Prisma Studio repo, but it's tagged accordingly with the hosted data browser, so we know what this is about. And if you have any more in-depth feedback, you can reach out to Spiros, who is the product manager for the Prisma Data Platform. The rest is, I guess this is recursion, somewhat, Inception. We are on this What's New in Prisma live stream, and we'll talk about Prisma Day a little bit later in today's stream. All right, I'm done with this. Mahmoud, do you feel ready to now share your screen and show us what MongoDB looks like?
One sec. Show this screen. Okay, you should see like an infinite stuff, right?
Yes.
Okay.
There you go. I've added it.
You can see my editor, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm using the same like data model from the release notes. I think it explains very well kind of like the new features. So you have a log model, and each log will have a message, which is of type string. It will have a level of type level, which is an enum. So this means that a level can only take one of 3 values, either an info or a warn or an error. And we've given it a default value of info. So if we do not specify the level, it will be automatically set to info. And then we have meta, which is a JSON object. So JSON fields are very useful when you don't know what is the shape of the data that you're going to store in the database. So for example, maybe you have some type of settings on the front end, and it's different for each user or for different like events. So yeah, so like the good thing about JSON is that it's very flexible. So it's just an object. And yeah, so like to enable MongoDB, I've set the provider to MongoDB, and I'm loading the URL from this .env file. And I also specified that our preview feature is MongoDB. And also one important thing, when defining the ID using MongoDB, we have to specify that it's like an object ID. So like this is MongoDB specific, otherwise it will break. I didn't notice it. So yeah, just make sure you do not do the same mistake and like be stuck for a while. And yeah, so like now, what I will do is, let me just clear that. I will generate a client. So I'll run npx Prisma generate. And it says loading from my env file, and the schema is loaded correctly. And I have a Prisma client generated for me, which is nice. So now when I'm writing my queries, like here, so here I'm importing Prisma client, and I'm creating a new instance. And I have an async function main, which will be called. And if there are any errors, they will be caught. But yeah, so like at first we connect, and then we disconnect. So like for the database connection. And finally, so say, for example, I want to create a record. So I can say const log equals await Prisma. And now the auto completion magic is happening. So I can see log. This is loaded from the model. Dot. And then these are the different methods with like beautiful documentation on the side. So I want to create a record. I want to create a log. So I will just create. And this takes an object and data. And I can immediately see that, OK, this is red. So like you get type safety with Mongo, which is super nice. So if I hit control space, I can see the different fields. So if I say message, it's a string. And if I say it also needs, I believe, a level, it should have a default value. Something is missing. If I go back to the data
it should
model,
be optional, right?
Yeah, it needs no. Yeah, so like the level is optional, but I haven't specified the meta object, which is required. So now, if I say meta, and yeah, so like now there are no errors. So this can be anything. But like for in the example of the release notes, there was like a user ID like field, like a key with a value of like 1. This can be whatever you want. It's very flexible. So message, I can say this is a warning. And if I don't specify like the level, so it automatically will be set to info. That's why it did not complain. But if we did not set the default value in the Prisma schema, it would have complained, and there were like TypeScript will be like, hey, you forgot something. So we can say, and as you can see, we only have these 3 possible values. So it's fantastic development experience in my opinion. Like I can't wait for it to be like out of like early access. So I want it to be like a warning, and let's log this. So I'll log the log. And yeah, if I run this query right now, so if I run, let me just clear this. If I say npm run dev, things should work. And yeah, so like now I have a new record in the database that has been created. And yeah, so like, for example, if I want to create another record, I can just copy and paste this and maybe change maybe let's call it second log. And instead of the message, let's say this is an error. And we can, instead of this user ID, maybe you can leave it as an empty object if you want. And we can say that this is an error. Also, if you notice that if I don't specify anything, it also complains because it must take one of the 3 values. So like that's what an enum is. So I have to say error. And if I also run it again, So there will be actually multiple records created in the database. And I'll show it to you using Prisma Studio, and we can wrap up this mini demo. So yeah, so like now it works. The meta object is empty, just like we want it to. And yeah, so like now if I run npx Prisma Studio.
It's so nice that this is now also working out of the box with Prisma Studio, which effectively gives you a GUI for MongoDB that you can run locally, and that's really easy to use. So I was quite impressed when I learned that like Prisma Studio also works out of the box with MongoDB already.
Yeah, so like now everything works, and you can explore your data. Should be able to delete, update, whatever. And yeah, so like instead of like, for example, with MongoDB, you would use something like MongoDB Compass, or there are, I believe, other solutions as well, but you don't have to. So yeah, this is it. Like it's nice. It's a nice release, but like it wasn't as big like as other releases.
Thanks for the demo. And I think that in a month from now, our other developer advocate, Daniel, will be speaking at a MongoDB event. Is it MongoDB World even?
Not sure.
They have this yearly big conference as well, and like we've been invited to talk about Prisma and MongoDB there. And Daniel, who has been on the stream a couple of times already as well, he will give a talk there. So everybody who's curious about Prisma and MongoDB should definitely also have that on their radars. But if you're following Prisma on Twitter or Slack, then I'm sure that you'll get a couple of hints about this in the upcoming weeks. All right, Mahmoud, what do you say? Should we bring on Rich to this show?
Yes, let's ask him how is like the life, how his life is as a documentation writer. Hey, Rich.
All right.
How's it going?
Hey, how's it going?
We are doing great. How did you like Mahmoud's demo?
Yeah, it was nice. It was nice. Very good. I'm impressed.
Cool.
I've never used MongoDB, so yeah, it looks good.
All right. Yeah. So like speaking of that, what is your like background actually? What did you do before you started working at Prisma?
As a front-end developer for a network security company here in Sweden. Mm-hmm. So I predominantly work with front-end stuff, all the cool libraries and tools and stuff like that. And I was doing technical writing like freelance for around a year and a half before. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of through doing that, kind of saw that's kind of where I wanted my career to go. So hence kind of applying for the job at Prisma.
Very cool. And what I find always interesting when talking to other developers is kind of their story, how they got into coding. I feel like everybody has kind of their own kind of story to tell there. So like, how did you get into coding in the first place, Rich?
I mean, my story is quite long. I can kind of shorten it down. So
we have time today.
I'll tell the whole thing. So basically, I'm from England and I moved to Sweden in 2010, my wife, and I got a job as a scaffolder because I didn't know the language and stuff. And I did that. Before I moved here, I studied film and broadcast production at university, but I couldn't really get any work in London. So that was kind of led to why we moved. Yeah, so I got a scaffolder here in Sweden, and then I did that for a number of years, but like I need to be able to do creative things. And that wasn't very creative for me. I mean, the job was fine. You know, people I worked with were fine, and that nothing wrong with that. But it wasn't really the creative outlet I wanted. So my wife saw that there was a. Oh no! Before that, so if I'm going to tell the whole story, before that, so I needed this kind of creative outlet. So I decided to. I was looking at ways I could start my own company doing something. So I kind of invented this wooden sunglasses company. And so we designed these wooden sunglasses and we had them made in a factory in China. And then I made a website with Shopify. And that was like the first time I'd made a website. I mean, I didn't make it like I would now as a front-end developer. I made it as you would as a Shopify person, like drag and drop, that kind of stuff with a theme and them kind of things. But that was the first time I'd kind of done anything like that. Anyway, I did that. Sold the business.
Actually, sorry. That's actually interesting. I think that this is a very kind of like common story that a lot of people start just building a website for some kind of personal need. In fact, I think it was it Jason Lengstorff? I interviewed him like 2 or 3 years ago on the GraphQL radio podcast back then. And he got into coding because he built, I think, the MySpace page for his band.
Yeah, exactly.
And he just wanted to change themes there as well and all that. So yeah, it was kind of funny to hear his story there as well. And I feel like you're kind of in a similar camp there.
I think it is quite common, yeah. So, but anyway, I sold the company, and then I was back to square one, being a scaffolder. There was like an adult education program here where I live, doing the C#.NET course. Long story short, I took that course. I absolutely loved it. I did really well, and I got an internship at a company, and they hired me straight after my internship. So I carried on working there. So I worked there for like 3.5 years, and I was during that time kind of started blogging, doing technical writing, and then I still loved. I am a developer. I mean, I wouldn't call myself a professional writer or anything. I do still code all the time, but I enjoy writing about it. So that's kind of like what I like to do with my days. So
nice. Yeah, Mahmoud, I think you also started with filmmaking, basically, right? And that also kind of led
like
you down.
A hobby. Yeah, and then I was like, okay, I won't be able to like make a living off of this. Like, let's try like coding. Yeah, it's very difficult. And I was like, hey, let's try this coding thing. I also I was curious, okay, how would I build a website? And then I got into like web development, and like the rest is history. And like here I am.
All right. And like, how did you find out about the job at Prisma, Rich? And why did you decide to join us? What motivated you specifically to join Prisma?
You know what? Now I can't remember how I found the specific Prisma job. I think I saw someone tweet about. No, that was it. I saw Jason retweeted a tweet from Martina saying that they were looking for a technical writer. That was it. And I'd heard of Prisma. I'd seen it used in Redwood and stuff like that and other projects. And I played about with it via them. I'd never used it directly. And I read through the job description. It just sounded really cool. The company sounded good. It was also because it was like a product and it's kind of the side of the development world I'm not really used to. So I like that kind of challenge, learning about that kind of back-end environment. And I find it's enjoyable. You know, if I'm always going to be doing front end things, you never really progress either as a developer. So it's cool doing that kind of stuff, learning about it. So yeah, that's kind of why I applied. And luckily, I got the job and they loved me. And here I am. So
we do love you, and you're doing a great job.
Yeah, thank you.
So what has your work been like so far? You're like mostly working on documentation. How is your work structured? What does a typical day look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, I've been working on a few features. So introducing kind of testing guides to the docs. There's a few requested features that we have, or we're documenting new things that Prisma's working on, like the client or the migration and stuff like that. But it's also kind of like what the community wants. So there was a lot of talk around kind of testing guides. So that's why we kind of jumped on it and decided to do something and write something about it. So I kind of took that one. And I mean, typical day is kind of like, I have a task to do and maybe I have a project to make so that I can document how to do it. Then there's a lot of crying, as Martina alluded to in her talk yesterday, when you just feel that you can't write anything and it's like, why do I do this? But it comes back, and you do all right in the end. So yeah, it goes around. Sometimes you don't feel productive, even though you sit there all day, and you can't do anything.
The words aren't like coming out.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, I agree. You have to be in like sort of the right mental state for this to flow properly. And we talked about this today, Mahmoud. You said you had like the writer's block. That like sometimes happens, and we've probably all experienced this in our work where we just like write a lot, and sometimes you just lack the creativity. But that's like totally fine. I mean, we're all human beings, and we can't always be productive. So,
yeah, absolutely. I think the key is to step away and do something else.
Exactly. Take a break. And have a healthy balance there. All right, Mahmoud, do you have any further questions for Rich, or shall we already let him go?
I don't think I have anything. I don't know. What's it like? Kind of like exploring this other side of the stack, because you said your experience was front end. So were there any surprises for you, or things, I don't know, while you were learning about backend?
No, I mean, not really. I'm really enjoying it. I've done some backend development with .NET and stuff, but never Prisma's it's Node, it's TypeScript, so I'm comfortable with JavaScript. So from that respect, it's okay. It's more for instance, working with Docker and things like that with Prisma and different
Docker is challenging.
It's like a rabbit hole, And but integrating it with different systems, like you're doing this Prisma and Next thing, and I've tried to do things like this as well, just to kind of learn about how to use it and how it integrates with things. So that's what I find really fun. The fact that it's this abstraction that you can just basically use with anything really in the JavaScript ecosystem, and that's kind of the fun thing to learn about how to use it with them things. So that's what I'm enjoying.
Nice. Glad you're enjoying it.
Me too.
Thank you for joining us today, Rich, and we will see you on Slack.
Yeah, you're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye. Cheers.
Bye.
All right, let's rearrange the screen here with the right name tags, and then let's get to the last sections of today's stream. So as a quick reminder, we will have a little bit of time in the end. So if you have any questions about Prisma that you always wanted to ask, now is the time to drop them in the chat so that Mahmoud and I can pick them up towards the end of the stream. Before we talk about events, I very quickly wanted to highlight something that we have done at Prisma over the past couple of weeks. So I'm going to share my screen again. And
make sure it's on this.
Not making the same mistake as before. Here we go. I think you see my screen, and you see the Prisma blog with a blog post that we launched actually last Friday about the Prisma Ambassador program. And I'm sure that many of the people who are watching, they are probably part of our community or would consider themselves so, but maybe not everyone has seen this already. So the Prisma Ambassador program is basically this idea that you can become a Prisma ambassador and help other people in the Prisma community while building your brand. And the main motivation for that actually happened because we saw that a lot of you are already creating content about Prisma. So we regularly see blog posts that are being released about Prisma, tutorials, and we wanted to have some way to acknowledge that in a more somewhat official way. And that's why we launched this ambassador program, to reach out to the folks that are already creating content and introducing some sort of more official partnership with them. And on the other hand, of course, also giving new people that are coming into the Prisma community the opportunity to become a part of this as well. So if you want to become a part of this program, then what you would have to do is you have to create a piece of content about Prisma per quarter. This can be a talk at a meetup or at a conference. It can be a tutorial, can be another kind of blog article, can even be an example repo with like a sample app that you have been building with Prisma. So really, we don't really care about what kind of content, and we'll help you even review the content, provide feedback, and if it's great, then we might also be sharing it and promoting it through our own channels. And then in the Prisma community, this already happens a lot, actually, that people help each other. So if you already have a little bit more knowledge about Prisma, then it would be awesome if you could also join the conversation on Slack, on GitHub discussions, and Stack Overflow, and help other users when they have questions about Prisma. And then we have this quarterly ambassador board meeting that is happening once a quarter, where all of you are invited that are part of the program. So I invite you to check out this blog post, and if you're interested, then apply to become a Prisma ambassador. if you become a Prisma ambassador, you can do something like Facundo here did. You'll get this sharing image that you can put on your Twitter feed and announce that you're part and now an official part of the Prisma community. All right, that's what I wanted to say about the Prisma ambassadors. Next,
it's a great program. Like it's a way for us to kind of like recognize the people who are like giving back to the community, because it's one of the main things that makes Prisma great is that it's not just like us creating the content, the examples. No, you actually have people who love the product and they're giving back. So whether they're sharing their experiences, reporting bugs, helping each others, and hanging out in like the community. So yeah, it's just awesome. And we wanted to have something to kind of say like thank you and encourage other people as well. So yeah.
Right. And so I think that a lot of companies are actually having similar programs. And I think you, Mahmoud, you are also an ambassador for Auth0. Is that right?
Yeah, so like I was part of the program. They're similar. So like with Auth0, you create content related to security, authentication, and Auth0 in general. And yeah, so like it's Auth0 ambassadors. Yeah, and there's also like AWS community builders. I recently joined that program to kind of like also help in the like AWS community where I want to hang out and create content. So yeah, it's just a very cool way to find people who share the same interests as you. You also kind of like you're recognized for it. So like it's a super nice like I don't know, it's a nice achievement. So like when getting into like these communities, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. All right, then let's quickly talk about a couple of events that have been happening at Prisma. So we hosted the Prisma online meetup number 6 last week. It was, or actually not last week, it was yesterday. And you can watch it here on YouTube, the Prisma meetup number 6. And there were 3 talks. One was actually by Facundo, who I just showed you the ambassador tweet of. Then Jim Walker talked about architecture of distributed SQL. And then Rich's colleagues or closest colleagues, Martina, who he is working with on the documentation, and Nilu, who is our engineer for the documentation. So she's actually building the documentation website. So both of them talked about writing and building the Prisma docs. And I think that was also a very fun talk. So definitely worth checking that out. And then, of course, we had the Connect Dev Africa meetup that was initiated by our other working student, Alex. That happened last week already. And Mahmoud, you were a speaker there. And I think it was the first talk you ever gave at a meetup. Is that right?
Yeah, so like the first one I gave in English. So like I've done a couple, but like it was in Arabic and like my local JavaScript communities. And yeah, so like I saw this event by Alex. The goal of it is to give like people who are like based in Africa a place where they can share the things that they're working on, their experiences. And yeah, so like there was 3 talks. Well, the first one was by Gift. It was like about personal branding. So it's not a technical talk, but it was very useful and very insightful. And then you have like Ekene, or like he goes by like Kenny. He like talked about like the Jamstack and like on-demand builders. So like he gave kind of like an introduction to what the Jamstack is, and like the kind of like challenges with static generation, incremental static generation, and then kind of introduced on-demand builders, which is very interesting. And then I gave like introduction to GraphQL, which is a technology that I'm super excited about. And like I explained, it's basically GraphQL 101. So I tell you what GraphQL is, compare it to REST APIs, and give you kind of like some code snippets so that you have kind of like the correct mental model. And yeah, if you decide to adopt it, it's awesome. So if you don't have any experience with GraphQL, this talk is for you. And yeah, it was super interesting.
Awesome. Yeah, it was really great to see both you and Alex at the same time on stage there. I was super excited that this happened after only half a year that you had been with us at
like
Prisma.
6 months. Yeah.
So that was definitely a great achievement. And the last thing that I want to talk about today is Prisma Day, which is coming up on June 29th and 30th. That is, I think, in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, something like this at the end of the month. June 29 will be packed with workshops. So we'll have 3 workshop slots. The first workshop will just be an introductory workshop to Prisma. But the special thing about this one is actually that it'll happen in several languages. I think we have at least 7, 8
I think
languages,
8, yeah, something like that. Yeah,
8. We have
Spanish,
German,
Polish, German,
Spanish,
so
Polish, Russian,
French,
Chinese, Japanese, Portuguese. So really, if you're not comfortable speaking English and you just want to learn about Prisma in your native language, this is going to be the opportunity for you to do that. Then the second slot, the second kind of workshop will be backend workshops, where you learn to build a backend application with Prisma. And then the third workshop slot will be community workshops that are given by folks and especially library authors from Keystone, from Redwood, from Blitz, from Application. So these are all tools that are built on top of Prisma and a little bit higher level. So they typically cover either the entire backend or even full stack like Redwood and Blitz do. And yeah, you can learn about these directly from the creators on Prisma Day as well. And then on June 30th, we'll have a bunch of talks. And I think we'll release the schedule either even tomorrow or early next week. So keep an eye on the Prisma Day website, prisma.io/day. And that's everything you have to know about the upcoming Prisma Day, I think.
Yeah, I'm super I'm impressed with how we're hosting multiple workshops in different languages. So to me, it's kind of like, okay, this is so cool. So if you, I don't know, if you speak German, instead of attending the workshop, you can be like, Guten Morgen. And you can probably ask questions as well. So it's going to be live on Zoom, I believe. So it's going to be like a webinar, right?
Yes, exactly. It'll be in the form of a Zoom webinar. So it'll be somewhat interactive, although people don't tune in with their video typically, but there is an extra Q&A section where people can ask questions in addition to the typical Zoom chat, and a couple of nice other features for Zoom webinar, which are specifically for kind of webinars and workshops that are held via Zoom. So
so cool.
That'll be exciting.
Yeah, if you know someone that will be interested, make sure to tell them, hey, if you don't know already about Prisma, go check out their workshops. They're super nice. I checked out the Spanish one, kind of the plan and kind of the outline. It's super nice, and it can it's a nice introduction. So
nice. Yeah, I'm actually so for me it's always hard to tell how many developers in their native languages are not actually super comfortable with English. And I think that probably there are a lot of them, especially in countries where English is not that common. Even in Germany, I think a lot of the German developer community is still speaking German and might not be super comfortable speaking English all the time. So I think this is really a great opportunity for everyone to lower kind of the access barrier for folks that don't feel comfortable speaking English all the time.
Yep.
All right, Mahmoud, let's pick up a couple of questions, and then I think we can slowly wrap up. So there is a question by Gautam. Will the Prisma data platform eventually take over Studio, or will Studio always be local? That's a really good question. And I think the way how we are thinking about it today, which of course can change depending on user preferences and what our product team decides, but the plan as of today is to keep these two separate. So the Prisma data platform will be a web-based application that you can use to configure the data mesh, which is going to be a future component of the Prisma data platform. It'll have this control plane with the project management and online data browser functionality. And then separate from that is Prisma Studio as kind of your local data browser. But it's not unlikely that they might share some features in the future, as they do already today with the data browser. But as of today, the plan is to keep the two separate. Cool. Then there was a question from Tarun. And he asked about building a large application with Next.js and Prisma and Postgres and Mongo. I actually asked him to maybe specify this a little bit. And he came back with this. He's creating an application for B2B using Next.js and Prisma and Postgres, and wants to build a scalable application. And I think here, a couple of things that we can at least point to are some resources that we have available. So our colleague Daniel, last week, he built a course for building an application with Prisma and Postgres. And in fact, Mahmoud, I think you are working on a course today as well that is covering exactly the same stack. So like maybe you have some words
not the same stack. So like this, the Tarun wants just Next.js and Prisma. So like Prisma focuses on the database. So there are different options for the API. So it depends on what type of API you want. But like the course I'm working on, I'm focusing on GraphQL. So I'll be building a big app where there will be, you will be using Prisma, TypeScript, GraphQL, and Next.js and deploying it to Vercel. So yeah, now there are some, I think the word is caveats when deploying. And then like Daniel also, our colleague, covered kind of like how you approach deployments. So yeah, so like I'm working on that, but we already have resources related to Next.js and Postgres. Hopefully that answers the question. Yeah.
We hope that helps. If you have more specific questions, then you can always go to the main Prisma repo on GitHub. We have the discussions enabled there, which is a feature for Q&A directly on GitHub. So you're always welcome to go to that repo and ask questions there, and we'll pick them up and answer in detail the stuff that we cannot talk about on the stream.
Yep.
This question was from Albin, and I think it was referring to the queries that you were sending during your demo. And I think just a quick hunch like at this is that MongoDB is still in early access. And we're generally kind of following this approach of make it work, make it right, make it fast when building when building the software that we're putting out. So I think for now we're like focused on making it work and making it right. And when it enters production, then I'm sure that the speed will be really good, so that you don't have to worry about that. There was a question from Astor, if MongoDB is already supported. I answered that actually already in the chat. Yes, in early access. We ask you to fill out a type form to get access to the resources that explain how to get started, and we'll also invite you to a private Slack channel for feedback. Nice to see Joey in the comments. You were a bit late to the party, I think. You missed Rich on the stream, but luckily we are on YouTube and you can just go back and watch everything after the fact. Then this question about cascading deletes, is there a plan to include them with the Prisma schema? And yes, I'm happy to report that this is already on the roadmap and our product and engineering teams are already working on this. You can track the development with this link that I'm about to drop in the chat. You can go to the Prisma roadmap here and follow this item to be up to date about the development here.
So like with cascading deletes in the Prisma schema, like users will be able to specify, hey, when deleting this, I want things to be automatically deleted? Or how would that work in general? Or is that still not
sorry, can you repeat that? Sorry, I didn't
so like, okay, so cascading deletes is when you have two connected models, and
right.
when one is deleted, the other has to be deleted as well, correct?
Yes, and that's a feature actually of most relational databases that a lot of relational databases have, that when you configure a foreign key in the database, that you can specify this deletion behavior, like what should be happening to the connected record. And you typically have, I think, 3 actions available, do nothing, delete it, and something else. And well, in fact, you also have the same not only with deletes, but also with updates. And you can configure that basically on a SQL level. And that's also already possible with Prisma today, but it's not yet supported in the Prisma schema. So you would have to run a migration where you first only generate the SQL, then you customize the SQL to include your preferences for what kind of deletion behavior you actually want to have. And finally, you can run the migration. So that's how it would work today. But it's going to be nicer, of course, when this is also reflected in the Prisma schema.
Cool.
All right. Another question from Gautam. I have another question. What will be Prisma's profitable product in the future? And that is the Prisma data platform that we've been mentioning before. That's how Prisma is eventually going to make money. And the Prisma data platform, we are developing it in tight collaboration with a lot of users of the open source tools. So the general idea for the Prisma data platform is to make it easier for development teams, organizations, bigger companies to work with Prisma in these contexts. And the concrete features we will decide based on the user feedback that is given to us. So our product teams are very eager to talk to any Prisma open source users to learn about their main pain points. And that is going to drive and inform the roadmap of the Prisma data platform. If you want to learn on a high level what it is about, I'll drop a link in the chat to a section in a blog post from a couple of weeks ago where we explained the main idea of the Prisma data platform. And there also have been talks already about the idea of the Prisma data platform during the Prisma Enterprise event and a Prisma meetup. And you'll find links to both in the blog post that I just shared.
Yeah. So like the main focus is collaboration, I believe, right?
Next question. Oh, sorry, something happened to my audio. I can't hear you anymore. I think that's my bad.
Yeah, I can hear you though.
All right, can you say something?
I'm saying something.
Let me just take off the headphones.
Is it your speaker now?
All right. No, I can't hear you.
Well,
all right. Like maybe let's like wrap this up. Can people still hear me?
Yeah.
Yes,
we can, but you can't hear me.
All right, I'll just. Okay, I can't hear you anymore, but I'm pretty sure that it's my issue. I'm sure. Like I would guess that people can still hear you. Maybe people can write in the chat whether they can still hear Mahmoud.
Yeah, they can. I believe so.
All right, I'll just.
You guys can hear me?
Okay, so people hear the two of us. It's me. I'm sorry, Mahmoud. I don't know what happened. Actually, I got a phone call and my headphones were connected to the phone as well, and somehow I think that broke it. But yeah, anyways, I'll just continue with picking up the questions from the chat and read your lips in the meantime. All right,
yeah,
let's talk about Raja's question here. Cloud functions are not picking up the Prisma client changes when deployed. I added the pre-deploy script with Prisma. Generate any help? This seems like a more involved question, Raja, that I think we'll not be able to really resolve on this stream here. For these kinds of cases, I would send you to our main Prisma repo, to the GitHub discussions. I'll drop a link to that in the chat. And there it would be helpful if you could share as many details as possible about this problem. And then we are going to help you there on GitHub. Abdallah wants to know if there is a link for Mahmoud's course. So Mahmoud, maybe you can answer that, even though I can't hear it.
So it's still in progress. It's going to go live on our YouTube channel and the Prisma blog. Can you read my lips? Nothing? Okay, so it's going to be there. So yeah, we'll tweet about it, and it's going to go live on our Prisma blog.
All right, I think you're done. So let's grab the last question from Victor and then wrap it up. Are there any functions to sync database schema like in TypeORM? It's very useful in development time when I don't want to create many migrations. I think, Victor, what you're looking for is the Prisma DB push command, which indeed just allows you to sync your Prisma schema with the database schema without creating any migrations. So that's probably what you're looking for this particular use case. All right, then let's wrap it up for this week. Mahmoud, thank you so much for joining me here. And yeah, everybody else, I'll see you in 2 weeks again. Enjoy the rest of your days. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. All right, bye.